Right. I see folks flying in off of our waiting room. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Shannon Wesley. I'm the program coordinator for professional development and education at the Association of Zoos and Aquariums main office in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I'm happy to be joined today by members of our Safe Sea Turtle group and a special presenter today. Today, our meeting will be recorded and the recording will be shared after the session today, as excuse me, along with a few other resources that you can find on our AZA website at AZA Learn. And we will also be utilizing our Q&A feature today. If you have direct questions for our presenters, you can pose them in the Q&A feature. If you have questions about your access to the meeting or questions about AZA or SAFE, you can direct them into our chat directly to me or one of our panelists, and we'll be able to respond to something in real time while Callie is presenting today. So with all of that, I'll turn it over to Callie Thorvalson, our program leader for Sea Turtle Safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shannon, and happy World Sea Turtle Day, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I know folks are still trickling in, but I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the Sea Turtle Safe program. First of all, I'm Callie Thorvalson from the South Carolina Aquarium, and I'm the program leader for AZA, that's the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, Sea Turtle Safe program. SAFE is an acronym for Saving Animals from Extinction, and there are more than 50 SAFE programs within AZA working to protect some of the most endangered animals from around the globe. With 20 AZA Zoos and Aquariums as Sea Turtle Safe program partners, we're helping conserve an amazing group of animals that we all here know and love, sea turtles. And although we're working in many ways to conserve all species of sea turtles, we really have a focus on two of the most endangered populations, the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle and the Eastern Pacific leatherback, which is the subject of today's talk, or part of the subject of today's talk. We're so excited to have Callie Veelenturf from the Leatherback Project with us today. I had the distinct pleasure of hearing from Callie and meeting Callie at the South Carolina Aquarium in 2024 and was incredibly inspired by all that she's accomplished. And I'm sure you'll feel the same after this webinar today. There are two additional SAFE steering committee members with us today, Cassandra Davis from the Aquarium of the Pacific and Katie Emmons from the Dallas Zoo. And they're going to be helping to ensure that we have a smooth experience today. Obviously, Shannon too. Shannon is really helping us with this webinar today, and we're very grateful for her support. And now I'll introduce Callie, visionary marine conservation biologist and National Geographic Explorer. Callie Veelenturf goes where many scientists are not willing to go, the intersection of field science and national and international policy. Callie inspires and influences high-impact conservation measures using collaborative scientific research initiatives with a special focus on connecting Indigenous and marginalized communities with government agencies to propose and achieve paramount environmental protections and advancements in the global recognition of intrinsic rights of nature. Callie founded and leads the nonprofit research and conservation organization, the Leatherback Project, where she works for the conservation of leatherbacks and other threatened marine species and their habitat. Through the Leatherback Project, Callie has trained thousands of Panamanian Army and Navy soldiers in the recognition of illegal sea turtle products, identified new to science sea turtle nesting and foraging sites, and spearheaded groundbreaking conservation proposals and laws in Panama, including a new national wildlife refuge, Law 287, recognizing the rights of nature, and Article 29 of Law 371 that recognizes sea turtles as legal entities with specific rights. Callie aspires to lead and empower other public citizens, scientists, storytellers, and educators to use their voices to advocate for the intrinsic rights of nature through an initiative called For Nature. She is a member of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature Marine Turtle Specialist Group, 2024 Future for Nature awardee, the Explorers Club New Explorer of the Year, and a Visionary Award recipient from the Schmidt Ocean Institute. Since 2023, her work has been featured on the front page of the Washington Post, CBS News, and Smithsonian Magazine. I'll now turn it over to Callie. Thank you, Callie, for being with us.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for that intro. Thank you, AZA and AZA Safe, for having me today. Really, this is the absolute best way that I could have thought of to spend World Sea Turtle Day. So thank you so much, and happy World Sea Turtle Day to everyone. As Kelly mentioned, I'm a marine biologist, and the species that I've focused on more than any other is the leatherback sea turtle. Let me see. Okay. So sea turtles in general, they're flagship species, and their capacity to act as ambassadors for ocean conservation as a whole is one of the major reasons that I love studying them so much. As sea turtles are affected in very tangible ways by the major threats facing the ocean, like plastic pollution, climate change, fisheries bycatch, unsustainable fisheries practices, and habitat destruction, we can use their plight and their story to inspire action and change for the ocean as a whole. And that's really what I wanted to share with you today, is our experience and success stories at the Leatherback Project of using sea turtle science to inspire broad sweeping conservation measures that not only affect sea turtles, but also the ocean. And before I get going, I really wanted to take a minute to just thank all of the team members and donors, sponsors, and collaborators that make this work possible. You'll hear just from me today, but it takes a village to really bring these changes about. And I would like to say that the first project that I'll be sharing with you will be funded in the future by the AZA Safe program. So I'm incredibly grateful for that support as well. And this is a photo. These are photos from our 2 field teams in Ecuador on the left and in Panama on the right. A combination of fishermen, government, agency representatives, and students from national universities, as well as, of course, local community members apart from fishermen, like young scientists. I became fascinated at about 22 years old by the leatherback sea turtle. The largest leatherback ever found was over 9 feet in length and weighed almost 2,000 pounds. They're the largest marine turtle and the second largest reptile by weight. For me, the leatherback sea turtle has always been a symbol of both the general biodiversity crisis and the ocean. And that's because they bridge the gap between the land and the sea. They spend so much of their life on the high seas, making these great oceanic migrations between continents and in pelagic environments outside the exclusive economic zones of countries of the world. But they still need to enter coastal waters to forage and emerge onto coastal beaches to lay their eggs. Their great oceanic migrations are a powerful testament to the fact that nature knows no country boundaries. And due to these global movements, marine turtles like leatherbacks require international conservation measures to be fully protected. Leatherbacks are keystone species, meaning that they're important for healthy ocean ecosystem functioning. They can consume their weight in jellyfish every single day. And as jellyfish consume juvenile fish and fish larvae, this means that when more leatherbacks are in oceanic ecosystems, they can act as a natural control on jellyfish populations and decrease pressures on local fish stocks. In this sense, leatherback sea turtles can act as fishermen's best friend and really help maintain healthy oceanic ecosystem functioning. There are 7 different subpopulations of leatherback sea turtle around the world. One is listed as endangered on the International Union for the Conservation of Nature's Red List, and 4 are actually listed as critically endangered, and 2 are data deficient. The major threat facing this species of sea turtle is fisheries bycatch, or the accidental catch of sea turtles in fishing gear. Leatherback sea turtles can only hold their breath for about 80 minutes, and sometimes gill nets, like these long walls of nets that can be 1 kilometer to 1.5 kilometers in length, can be set for 12 to 24 hours. So when this happens, we have large amounts of sea turtles getting caught in these gill nets and drowning incidentally. In the East Pacific, as Kelly mentioned, we have one of the most critically endangered subpopulations of any sea turtle species in the world. Back in the 1980s and 90s, there were about 35,000 leatherback sea turtles nesting and foraging throughout the eastern Pacific Ocean from Mexico to Chile along the coast of Latin America. And over the years, we've seen this population size steadily decline to a point where we're estimating that there are less than 1,000 individuals left in this population today, maybe about 600 individuals. And this represents a 98% decline in their population size. On seeing my first leatherback sea turtle in 2015 in Costa Rica, I remember being struck by the previous marks that this was the only leatherback that I would see during my 3-month internship in Austinau, Costa Rica. And I felt like I was personally witnessing the extinction trajectory of this ancient reptile. As I watched her return to sea, I saw the white lights on the horizon, the industrial fishing. I realized that although a majority of sea turtle conservation programs around the world are focusing on the protection of nesting females, the major threat to the species is out in the ocean, on the high seas. And this is what made me want to start my organization, the Leatherback Project, where we're focusing on conservation of the leatherback sea turtle around the world and also using their plight to draw attention to the many threats facing the ocean in general. And today I really am so excited to be sharing with you 4 case studies and maybe a couple other sub-case studies of our success story in using science and data sets about sea turtles and the threats that they face to inspire these broad sweeping conservation measures. So the first one is tackling fisheries bycatch in the East Pacific, specifically in Ecuador. So to give you a little context, there was a paper that came out in 2018 by the group Pro Delphinus in Peru that estimated that about 87% of fisheries bycatch in the Southeast Pacific, so between Ecuador, Peru, and Chile, occurs in Ecuador alone. And this can equate to over 40,500 sea turtles being caught in artisanal gill nets per year. And this figure here, the size of the circle represents the magnitude of the number of sea turtles getting caught in each fishing port per year. So you can see all of the largest circles are on the left panel, which is Ecuador, Peru in the center, and Chile on the right-hand side. And the largest circle here is represented by Puerto Santa Rosa in Ecuador, with about 3,750 turtles being estimated to be caught per year. And so in 2019, I traveled to Ecuador. I didn't really know anyone. I just knew that I needed to see what could be done on the ground to combat this threat facing sea turtles. I decided I was going to meet with as many people as possible and just begin to understand what's being done, what could be done, and how could I support these efforts. So I met with local university students from the province where the port Santa Rosa is located in Santa Elena, and I met with local fishermen from various ports along the coast. We began documenting the threats, and particularly fisheries bycatch, that are affecting leatherbacks by working with fishermen to collect multimedia, GPS points, and date information. So over time, our dream was really to create a data set understanding the spatial distribution of these bycatch events in the different types of fisheries and the different types of currents to see how we could better protect sea turtles while minimizing impact on fishing activities. This was also really important because in our preliminary discussions with the government of Ecuador, there was really a lack of understanding and belief of the current statistics that fisheries bycatch was as bad as it was. We began doing research into some of the different solutions that have been found around the world to combat fisheries bycatch, and we learned about the use of sensory capabilities of different species to make fishing gear more selective. For example, sea turtles and some of the target fish species in Ecuador, like tuna, mahi-mahi, and swordfish, they actually see different wavelengths of light. And there had been preliminary studies from around the world that showed that when these green LED lights were placed on gill nets, they caused a decrease in bycatch of endangered species without a significant effect on target fish catch. And this was because species like sea turtles can see the wavelength of green LED lights, and so they can see that the gill net is in the water and avoid becoming entangled, whereas a tuna fish species might not distinguish this green LED light as being different from the surrounding blue ocean, which causes the target catch not to be affected. And when we did a survey of a literature review rather, of understanding all of the different preliminary studies that had been done, we saw that there was an 81% decrease in sea turtle bycatch, 84% decrease in seabird bycatch, a 95% decrease in shark bycatch, and a 71% decrease in cetacean bycatch, all using green LED lights in other countries. And so we joined together with the Mare Nostrum Foundation, which is based out of Ecuador, and Ecopacifico Plus, which is based in Latin America, to see if we could test this solution at scale in Ecuador within one of the artisanal fishing communities. And this is how Project Iluminar El Mar was launched. It was one of the winners of the UN Development Program Ocean Innovation Challenge. So we applied to this challenge just hoping to see if we might be able to get pilot funding. And there were about 350 applications from around the world, and we were one of 10 winners. And the project Iluminar El Mar really just means illuminate the sea. And for us, this was, of course, a literal name, but also more of a inspirational name that we're hoping to illuminate these communities and the way forward together through the use of these lights. And so our project was based out of Jaramillo in northern Ecuador. And we used these green LED lights from a company called Centro. They have these two wet-dry external sensors. So when the light is wet, it turns on, and when it's dry, it shuts off. And this was incredibly important for our team because in northern Ecuador, there's a lot of pirate activity. And so the fishermen wanted to test the lights, but they really didn't want to be illuminating their fishing activity because it could pose a threat to their safety. And so the fact that the lights only turned on once they were submerged was what really allowed us to work with the fishermen. We came up with a schematic where we would deploy the lights at 10 meters deep and 16 meters apart, and this would allow the light to not be visible at all from the surface. The typical studies had tested the lights along the buoy line and about 10 meters apart, and so this was a bit of an adaptation to the original design to make the net a little less bright, which made the fishermen feel safer. And we worked with 10 different vessels over the course of 8 months and putting the lights every 16 meters. And we deployed the lights on only half of the gillnet. So we had half of the gillnet be illuminated, a 200-meter buffer, and then the other half of the gillnet would be non-illuminated. And this allowed us to have our experimental and control set up all within the same net. And we were so excited to be collaborating with the fishermen as conservation allies and citizen scientists. We showed the fishermen how to use GPSs, how to measure the length and width of sea turtles, how to safely disentangle sea turtles, how to revive them if they were partially drowned. And we really collaborated with them to collect all of the information that we needed during the course of these trials, which was, I think, one of the major reasons we had such buy-in from the fishing community, because they were really empowered to be part of the solution. And of course, as an example of sea turtles being ambassadors for conservation, although we were working with this technology specifically in an effort to try and prevent local extinction of the leatherback sea turtle, we were providing a solution that was impacting many other species groups like elasmobranchs, mobulares, and the scalloped hammerhead shark as seen here on the top right, and different cetacean species such as the dolphin here on the bottom right. This is a young juvenile dolphin. And some of the preliminary results from the study, our raw data here, we worked with the fishermen over 169 fishing trips, which meant 503 net sets. So 503 times the fishermen deployed the nets with lights. And we used two different types of lights, actually. The economy lights were manually turned on, and the standard lights were the ones that turned on and off automatically. We tested both. And over the course of the study, there were 14,439 individuals of the target catch being caught, so swordfish, mahi-mahi, or dolphin fish, and tuna fish species. And then we also caught over 4,000 individuals of non-target fish species, 92 marine turtles, including 7 leatherbacks, 336 sharks, 21 cetaceans, 53 mobulares, 1 sea lion, 2 mola mola or ocean sunfish, and 185 giant squid. And our preliminary results were really exciting. They were different than what we found looking at the best case scenario from around the world. But we showed a 58% reduction in sea turtle bycatch, a 50% reduction in ray bycatch, a 45% reduction in shark bycatch, and a 73% reduction in cetacean or dolphin and whale bycatch. So we were really, really excited by these results in just one season study. And we also did a lot of workshops with the local community, as you can see exemplified here, to evaluate the fisher experience. For us, the innovative part of our work wasn't just repeating a study, testing the lights, but actually coming up with a solution with the community of how they could be implemented and making sure that this is something that would be feasible and of interest to the local fishermen. So this is another example of one of the workshops that we held. In this particular workshop, we brought together not just the fishermen themselves, but also the broader community and ecosystem of the fisheries sector. So we brought together buyers and sellers, chefs from local restaurant owners, and government representatives to talk about what it would look like to actually implement a bycatch reduction technology, such as these green LED lights. And we conducted one-on-one surveys as well with the fishermen to document their very personal experience. And here we just have some results, some preliminary results from those surveys. I'll just highlight a few of the responses here. So 94% of the respondents indicated that the light significantly helped their activity by reducing the time that it took to disentangle non-target species. So this basically means that when a sea turtle gets caught, the fisherman can take anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour and a half to disentangle that turtle. And so if the fishermen are trying to decrease the time it takes to conduct their fishing activity, especially in the face of a threat from pirates, they're wanting to minimize the impact that it would have in collecting different species that aren't their target species. So anytime they catch a sea turtle or a whale, they're elongating their time for the fishing activity from anywhere from 30 minutes to like 1 to 2 hours. And so for them, this was a really exciting development in actually making their fishing activity more efficient. So 71% of the fishermen that were interviewed said that they would be willing to personally invest in this technology, which for us was incredibly exciting, because if the fishermen are saying that it's helping them and they're willing to invest in it, then that's really all we need to know to set this project up for success and scaling. There's much more I can share here, but just in the interest of time, I'm going to keep going. So the major takeaway here is that the fishermen we worked with are incredibly interested in moving forward with the project and taking action for nature. And they're really the heroes of the story. They're leading the way. Without their interest and support and desire to innovate in this space, we wouldn't have any of the opportunity to make this headway that we've been making. And so our next step here is really building a support network for sustainable fisheries at large. So we want to learn about how to engage the fisheries market. How could we certify and brand this product as an Illuminar El Mar caught fish? How could we work with different institutions and continue to empower the local community? Our goal in expanding Illuminar El Mar is to go from 1 port and 10 vessels and 40 fishermen to 3 ports and 100 vessels and 400 fishermen over the course of the next 3 years. And I did some calculations to understand what impact this might have on these different endangered species populations. So here, just to orient you, this is the impact of using the lights on just those 10 vessels over the course of 8 to 10 months. So on the left-hand side, I organized the information based on the number of individuals not caught due to net illumination. And on the right-hand side, I organized the information for individuals that were not drowned due to net illumination. And basically the difference here just takes into account the mortality of the species when caught. So there are some species that are almost always drowned when they're caught, and then there are others that are often released alive. So for example, during the course of our project, we just, in testing the lights, we likely protected 258 sharks from being caught and 252 from drowning. We likely protected 70 sea turtles from being caught and about 9 from drowning over all of the species. And so this was important because I wanted to project into the future. If we were actually able to deploy these lights on 100 vessels or 500 vessels, what kind of an impact would we be having on these populations? And so here I looked at the annual impact of implementing the lights on 100 vessels. And here we would be protecting 973 sea turtles from getting caught and about 127 from drowning. And if we were just working with these 100 vessels over the course of 5 years, that impact would jump to 4,866 individuals from being caught and over 600 from drowning. Now, if we were to look at the annual impact of 500 vessels using these lights, that would be an annual impact of 4,866 or so from being caught and 633 from drowning. But if we were to work with these 500 vessels over 5 years and keep them using the lights, we could prevent 24,300 plus sea turtles from getting caught in gill nets and over 3,000 from drowning. And so you can see here that these lights are incredibly effective, and the compounding impact over time and over scaling to just a few more communities is massive. And this might not be realistic because it's unlikely that we would ever get an entire fishing fleet to use the lights. But just for a hypothetical example, if we were to deploy the lights on all of the gillnet fishery in Ecuador based on the stats from our study, which would be 14,500 vessels, we could prevent the death of 18,300 turtles per year. So we really believe in this project at the Leatherback Project, and we're so excited to scale. We're so excited to have the support of AZA Safe. And this is just an example of how we break down some of the costs of making this happen. For example, it costs us $500 for a new GoPro to be able to document the specific species and interactions that the species are having with the nets. It costs us about $300 to hold a workshop for 40 fishermen. And the light battery replacements is about $40 a couple times a year. And again, I just want to put the focus on the fishermen here that are using the lights and risking their lives, especially in the face of the piracy threat, to make this project happen. Okay, so that was case study number 1 of using sea turtle science to propose a broad sweeping conservation measure which would protect many other species. Once we have the particular study published, then we're hoping to make the case to the government of Ecuador to get support from the government to implement throughout the country with as many fishermen as desire to be part of the project. But we're hoping that this will always be done from bottom up, not top down. So we want the fishermen to be driving their involvement because they know that it's mutually beneficial. Okay, case study number 2. So I also have been learning more about fisheries bycatch throughout the East Pacific, and I began working in the Pearl Islands archipelago in 2019, thanks to my first grant from the National Geographic Society, which was an early career grant where I documented the presence of different sea turtle species throughout this 240 island archipelago located in the Gulf of Panama. So there are over 240 islands and about 30 to 40 nesting beaches that are still being studied. But over the course of this project, we identified over 30 that were new to science and 4 foraging sites, which were also new to science, of 4 different sea turtle species like the leatherback, the hawksbill, green sea turtle, and the olive ridley sea turtle. And in addition to documenting their presence and absence from different parts of the archipelago, we also documented the threats that they're facing, such as fisheries bycatch from largely illegal fisheries that are occurring throughout the Pearl Islands, illegal consumption, and also the illegal wildlife trade. So the hawksbill sea turtle shell, as many of you may know, is often used to create spurs for cockfighting. Cockfighting throughout Latin America and in Panama is legal, but the use of hawksbill turtle shell in the use of the spurs for cockfighting is illegal. But it's very hard to implement these laws in remote areas. And so this is just an example of an olive ridley track on one of the sea turtle nesting beaches where I worked, how I was trying to balance this field life with work life, answering emails on a beach, an olive ridley sea turtle hatchling, an endangered green sea turtle nesting on one of the beaches. And here I'm documenting a human consumption event of an olive ridley sea turtle. And right before heading to the field, the screen is supposed to be black, don't worry. It's because it represents a difficult time in my life. But right before heading to the field, I had this experience at my first job as a marine biologist of defending my human rights. So I had my human rights be violated. I needed to learn more about what they were. I sought legal counsel to defend them. I was able to defend them and come to a resolution and move on with my life. And in that process of defending my rights, I wanted to learn how I could move on in a positive way from such a negative experience. So I thought about how I could defend the rights of nature in my work, because nature can obviously not defend herself. And I quickly realized that the rights of nature could not be defended in the way that I had just defended my own, because nature's rights are largely not recognized throughout a majority of legal systems around the world. And this really impacted me. And I bought the book, The Rights of Nature, A Legal Revolution That Could Save the World by David Boyd. And I was reading it alone in my tent on the sea turtle nesting beaches in Panama. And we also didn't have internet while I was in the field. And so when I was able to get cell service sporadically, I would get these updates from the wildfires blazing in Australia and in the Amazon. And this combination of healing from my personal experience, reading this book, seeing these global updates of the imbalance of society and nature, and seeing some of the ways in which current environmental law wasn't protecting sea turtles in the field, it inspired me to do something about it. I felt like I had nothing to lose in trying, and I decided to propose a new rights of nature law in Panama to Panama's First Lady and Congressman Juan Diego Vazquez. I basically tried to make the case that recognizing the rights of nature could be the most powerful way to cause a cascading system effect throughout society to help humanity find harmony with nature. And to my surprise, both the First Lady and Congressman Juan Diego Vazquez agreed. And we spent the next 2 years during the pandemic drafting, debating, and revising the law with the Parliament, the public, and the Earth Law Center. And on February 24th, 2022, the president of Panama signed this law into effect. So now nature in Panama has this long list of recognized rights, including the simple right to exist, persist, regenerate vital cycles, be restored, and even have legal representation in court. So now any member of Panamanian society can actually bring about a court case on behalf of nature. So this is a really exciting example of how I use sea turtle science from the field to propose a national level law, which has now been implemented 5 times throughout Panama, which I'll share more about in a minute. Another important component of the law is that it states that Indigenous peoples and local communities must be an integral part of interpreting and applying the rights of nature. So this law is always meant to be used by local communities to better protect their home and the local species that they encounter, and not used against local communities. Also, there are many ecocentric principles which will help with the interpretation and implementation of the law. My favorite is the first one here, in dubio pro natura. It basically just means that when in doubt, side with nature, which of course will be incredibly helpful for any judge looking to make a decision on how to implement the law. So one of the first implementation measures was through a collaboration with the Servicio Nacional Aeronaval of Panama. It's Panama's Air and Navy service. I basically have been training a few thousand soldiers over the last 5 years in how to identify illegal hawksbill turtle shell product, because the major reason that the current laws banning the use of this illegal wildlife product haven't been implemented is because the local soldiers have a hard time distinguishing actual turtle shell from plastic. And so there's an app that can be used that was created by Sea Turtles, SEE Turtles. And so we've been training the community members in this work and talking about how the Army Navy can be more involved in sea turtle conservation efforts. The Pearl Islands is a red zone for drug trafficking, so we actually often need to have armed escorts while we're doing our work. And so we've begun involving them more and more in the science, and this resulted in the creation of a new branch of Panama's Army Navy called the Environmental Committee. And I'm really excited about this collaboration because part of the resolution that creates this new branch of the Army Navy specifically tasked with defending the rights of nature. It talks about how each branch, so the Army, the Navy and the Air Force will be adopting different species groups and specifically dedicating their conservation time to protecting those species groups. And the Navy adopted sea turtles, of course. So that's been a really exciting development. And actually, it was the first implementation measure of Panama's National Rights of Nature law. So here I just highlighted that this resolution references the rights of nature law, and it also says that one of the major objectives of this committee is to make sure that the rights of nature are adequately defended. Okay, so case study number 3. So back in the Pearl Islands archipelago, there's this particular bay in front of Saboga Island that is home to, this is what it looks like. It's absolutely stunning. This is a drone shot. It's home to the endangered green sea turtle and the critically endangered hawksbill sea turtle. And we know this is an incredibly important habitat for the species. I knew right away, even before beginning our study, because we were seeing adult females and males, as well as very small juveniles of both species. And so we knew that this was an important habitat, and we began a long-term monitoring study here with the local community. This is one of my favorite places. I'd love to bring any of you there at any time. There's just turtles swimming around you at any given moment. This is an example of one of the smallest hawksbill sea turtles that we found, so a new recruit to this habitat. So I just wanted to share that quick video so you can see a bit of what our field work is like, how we go free diving at night to catch the turtles while they're sleeping. This minimally disturbs them. And then when we bring them to shore to work with them with the local community, we can put a wet towel over their head. And oftentimes they go right back to sleep and we're able to work with them and release them back into the ocean within a short period of time. And so one of my favorite parts of this project is working with the local children from the community. They live right next to the bay where these sea turtles are found, but a majority of them had never seen one before. And here in these remote areas, they don't necessarily have science class or labs. And so putting these gloves on to work with the sea turtles to learn how to clean the area where we'll be deploying a tag or to learn how to collect data is really an exciting part of their year. This is EDL. He's a 9-year-old from the local community, and this is the first time I taught him how to pick up a sea turtle. He now went from not knowing what a marine biologist was to wanting to be one when he grows up. And actually this past January, he just turned 13, and we actually provided through the NGO his PADI open water scuba diving certification. So he's going to be part of the team as he grows up, and it's been an honor to collaborate with him. We've also conducted a lot of education and outreach projects with the local community just to talk about sea turtles in general and share stories of the threats that they face. So one of the additional methodologies that we're using is deploying satellite tags. So I'm sure many of you sea turtle people know a lot about satellite tagging technology. Basically, there's these GPS tags. They have wet-dry sensors. So when a sea turtle comes to the surface to take a breath and the tag realizes that it's dry, it sends a location of the turtle to the passing satellites overhead, and we're able to sit on our computers and drink our coffee while seeing where the different sea turtles we've tagged are in the world. And so far, we've deployed 25 of these tags in Saboga and 135 identification tags. And this methodology is really important for delineating habitat use of sea turtles, for education and outreach, for inspiring conservation culture, informing management decisions. We always work with the local community in these processes and make it a very special event. And we often name the sea turtles after an important member of the community to inspire that conservation culture in relationship with the sea turtles. So here we have the different children from the local community and the sea turtle that was named after them. And I just wanted to show you some of the preliminary data. I'm currently analyzing this as part of my PhD. But this is preliminary data for the green sea turtle. So each color here is a different individual, and each circle is a place where they came to the surface to take a breath, and the tag transmitted its location. So as I zoom in here, you can see a very dense area of sea turtle habitat use here. And this is right in front of Saboga Island where the turtles were actually tagged. And this is the data from the hawksbill turtle. So again, the same thing, each color is a different turtle, and each circle is a place where the turtle took a breath. And again, you can see there's a very dense area of habitat use right in the northern part of the Pearl Islands where Saboga is. And so if I zoom in even further here, you can see that there's very dense habitat use in this one bay area. And this is, again, what I'm looking at as part of my PhD. But we use this information to propose a designation of the Saboga area, this bay, and some of the nearby islands as a national wildlife refuge. So the whole Pearl Islands archipelago is currently a ZEM, a special management zone, but it has no management plan, so it's not very protected. And so what we wanted to do here is propose like a zonification of that special management zone to be a national wildlife refuge. And we workshopped this idea with the local community members to make sure that this is definitely a proposal that fits their vision of what they hoped for their community. And we did a survey with the community members, about 70 individuals, and 100% of the individuals said that they wanted the National Wildlife Refuge to move forward, which is really exciting. And I'm really happy to say that this was signed by the President of Panama in September of just last year. And so for me, again, this is another example of sea turtle science being used to propose a large conservation measure that doesn't just affect sea turtles, but also a wide host of other species like 13 migratory seabird species and even humpback whales, which have a calving ground in this area as well. And so this is the announcement from the Ministry of the Environment from last September. And there's even different species of elasmobranchs like the whale shark and cow-nosed rays and mobula rays. And besides the humpback whale, there's also bride's whales. And in the resolution that created this National Wildlife Refuge, one of my favorite parts of this process was that it actually recognizes that nature is a direct subject of rights within this wildlife refuge. So even though we have the national law, that next measure of proposing that nature within the wildlife refuge be a subject of rights maybe isn't necessary because it's already stated nationally. But this is another way of just incorporating that paradigm of the intrinsic rights and value of nature into subsequent law, which is really important when it comes to implementation. So for example, here it says that sea turtles have the right to forage in their habitats and that the degraded coral reef ecosystem has the right to be restored by the government. So this means that over the years, if we don't see that happening, if we don't see the government restoring the degraded coral reef, we can hold them accountable because they've written this here in this resolution. So it's an incredibly powerful form of implementation of the National Rights of Nature law. And the Pearl Islands, I just wanted to highlight here, is part of a large network of migratory routes throughout the East Pacific, which is currently called CMAR. So it's the Marine Corridor of the Eastern Tropical Pacific, which is a multilateral binding agreement between Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, and Ecuador to protect the iconic marine protected areas within each country's exclusive economic zone, as well as the ocean in between, in the migratory corridors in between. So we have Galapagos Island, Cocos Island, Coiba Island, and Malpelo and Gorgona in Colombia. And the Pearl Islands, as you can see on the image in the left, is actually part of these migratory routes, but it's currently left out of the yellow polygon of CMAR. And so part of my work, I'm hoping, is a major life goal, is proposing that the Pearl Islands be part of CMAR eventually. And we actually demonstrated through this work the first connection between the Pearl Islands and CMAR when an adult male green sea turtle named Willie traveled from Savoga to Coiba Island in April of 2023. And we're tracking right now additional potential migratory routes of sea turtles leaving the Pearl Islands and heading to other MPAs in the region. And quickly, I also just wanted to say that we worked with Pana Tortugas and many other conservation organizations from throughout Panama in the debating of a national law. So this was a proposal put forth by Pana Tortugas and Congressman Gabriel Silva. And I worked with the Earth Law Center on a particular article that would be included as part of this law that focuses on the protection of the rights of sea turtles and their habitats. And it's still mind-blowing to me to this day that we were able to get this article passed in national law. But Law 371 from March 1st of 2023 states that Panama will guarantee that natural and legal persons protect the rights of sea turtles and their habitats, such as the rights to live and have free passage in a healthy environment, free of contamination and other anthropogenic impacts that cause physical and health damage, such as climate change, pollution, fisheries bycatch, coastal development, and unregulated tourism, among others. So now, for the first time in the world, any marine species group was granted intrinsic rights on a national level in Panama. And so this is an incredibly inspiring moment, I would say, not only for sea turtles around the world, but also for the rights of nature movement. And just really quickly, I wanted to share the last case study with you that I have ready for today. So this is another chapter of my PhD. Just to orient you, this project takes place in the Darien Gap, so between the Panamanian and Colombian border in the Atlantic Ocean, in a place called the Gulf of Urabá. There are these 3 leatherback sea turtle nesting sites located at those 3 pins, and this is one of them. This is Armilla, Panama. It's part of the 4th largest nesting aggregation for leatherback sea turtles in the world, and I was invited to be part of this project by 2 undergraduate thesis students from the University of Panama that asked me to mentor them. This is them up close, Linelis Rios on the left, she's currently in the field, and Wiggy Dilly Crespo on the right. Wiggy is from Armilla. We began many discussions with the local elders of the community over the course of several months to launch this project called Proyecto Yauk Galu, which means the Sacred Turtle Project in the indigenous language, Guna. And we also developed a relationship with Senafront, which is the Servicio Nacional de Fronteras. It's the National Border Service of Panama. We needed to collaborate with them to keep our team safe in the Darien Gap, which, as you may know, is one of the most dangerous places in the world. So here we were studying the adult nesting females and the hatchlings, and also collaborating with the local community to keep the beach clean. We also did a local mural project on the school. And so the focus that I really wanted to share with you today quickly is the Indomitable Turtle Project, which is part of Proyecto Yauk Galu, the Sacred Turtle Project. And basically what we wanted to do was understand the movements of the sea turtles in between the 3 nesting sites that I showed you in the first image. And so there's these 3 communities located here in Armilla, Acandí, and Necoclí, and the paramilitary groups of Colombia have proposed 3 port developments in the Gulf of Urabá, which is designated by those 3 red X's. And so our hypothesis was the movement of the sea turtles in between the nesting sites would be perpendicular to the movement of the vessels coming in and out of Gulf of Urabá. And this would obviously greatly disturb the nesting habitat, cause increased collisions with the sea turtles, noise and light pollution, and really potentially affect their ability to nest in this place into the future. And so we, over the series of two years, we deployed 24 satellite tags, and we basically followed the path of the turtles from Armilla to Necoclí, and then from Nekokli to Akandi and back, and worked with each one of the communities to deploy these tags and understand the movement of the sea turtles across the bay. So just some quick images of what this looks like. I was trained to do this by Kara Dodge from the New England Aquarium. She's one of my committee members on my PhD, and I'm so grateful to her for taking the time to share her knowledge with me that I was then able to share with the local communities here. And so really quickly, I just wanted to share our preliminary results here. Each color is a different sea turtle. And so you can begin to see the dense habitat use of the sea turtles in between the nesting sites in this Gulf where the ports are going to be built. And so our hypothesis was upheld in the sense that this is an incredibly important internesting ground for this particular species of sea turtle, and these threats are expected to pose the threat that we imagined that they would. And so our current really need is to publish this data and then bring the published report to the government of Colombia and propose that a biocorridor be built in between the two countries to better protect this nesting ground. As I zoom in here, you can see again, each color is a different turtle, and each circle is a place where the turtle took a breath. And you can see how dense this habitat use really is. And this is just a video of one of the satellite tagged sea turtles returning to the ocean. There was a point here where she took a breath. She took a pause and a breath and looked straight at us. And it might sound cheesy, but I felt like there has to be a way that she knows that we're there trying to support her, trying to protect this habitat, this incredibly remote habitat that this species needs to continue existing into the future in the Atlantic. And then we watched her return to the ocean. So our team is currently in the process of developing a proposal for the government of Colombia and Panama to evaluate what a biocorridor using the sea turtle data could look like between the two countries to better protect sea turtles from the shipping activity. We're hoping that maybe one of the two or two of the three ports could be paused or maybe moved to a different location thanks to the sea turtle satellite tracking data. But worst case scenario, we'll be proposing a biocorridor with mitigations for speed in the area. There's so much more that I would love to share with you. There's this quick trailer of a documentary being made on this work that I'll share, and then I think we'll be able to open the floor up to questions. So this is a documentary that has been filmed and is currently in post-processing called Sisters of the Sea, and it's a play on words because the leatherback sea turtle is considered the lost sister of the sea of the Guna people in our Mila, and our team, in our pursuit of protecting this species of sea turtle, also became Sisters of the Sea. Has been coming to this beach for millions of years to lay her eggs. Unfortunately now, due to the threats caused by humans, the nesting habitat appears to be no longer viable, at least in some parts of the beach.
Las tortugas, las baulas, son nuestros antepasados, la hermana perdida en el mar. Que es importante protegerlos, porque si no lo hacemos, ¿quién lo va a hacer?
This is the moment. We're fast losing the chance.
I just see the potential of what it would look like to live in harmony with nature. I really want to use my life in that way.
Jungle known as the Darien Gap, safe haven for criminal organizations and bandits.
La unidad de Defensa Nacional de Fronteras está entrenada para mitigar esa amenaza que se dé.
There is a contrast between what people think the work is versus what it is. Going into the field in remote places, not having safety nets. A first sea turtle conservation project here that will use tags of any capacity. We really want to know if the turtles are moving in between Panama and Colombia. There is port development. We need to know what threat they pose to these sea turtles. The groups that are developing the ports, they're very dangerous. My friend had a friend murdered for speaking out on their negative impact on local communities.
siendo la primera bióloga marina de Armila y trabajando en Armila. Ya estoy cumpliendo mi sueño.
Tienes un chance aquí inspirar a los niños que siguen tus pasos ahora.
Realmente siempre quise ser bióloga. Es algo impresionante como el universo me lleva a todo esto.
Ahora sí. Tortuga Armila está en Colombia. Qué emoción. Ahora vamos a marcar 4 más. Sí. Now is a time for drastic change. If we aren't inconvenienced, we are not doing enough. It's time that we advocate for the rights of nature within a legal setting around the world, and that we don't stop there. So I will just leave you with the fact that the leatherback sea turtle has been around for 110 million years. So they coexisted with the dinosaurs for about 45 million years, and they're only being threatened with extinction from different oceanic basins due to consistent pressures from the human race. So I know that working together, we can use the data about their habitat use and the threats that they face to inspire the changes that we need to see to protect them into the future. And thank you so much for having me today and for the opportunity to share these case studies from the field. And I'm excited to hear if you have any questions. I also just wanted to leave my contact information here and our different socials in case you wanted to follow along or reach out to discuss further. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Callie. Just by our questions already being typed in, I know that we have just an incredible response. And I wanted to just jump in with one question that's already been upvoted a couple of times and ask you a little bit about you. So you have accomplished so much in your career. Did you experience setbacks when working with communities that you were not a member of as you were going in? And do you have any advice for how to engage with communities effectively?
That's a great question, and I would say it's one of the most important ones when doing conservation work. And I think what I've always tried to do is go in with complete transparency. So when I enter a new community, I often hold a workshop and I just invite everybody from the community and maybe have coffee and snacks and cookies or fruit or something. And I just share a little bit about who I am and mostly ask about the community, ask about the community's needs, their goals, their vision, their problems, their concerns, and see where the common ground is. So when I held a workshop like this in Ecuador, I learned for the first time that combating fisheries bycatch was mutually beneficial because the fishermen didn't want to be catching sea turtles because they ripped those large holes in their nets, which are difficult, timely, and expensive to fix. And so just by having one of these listening sessions, I was able to really see that we had a mutual goal. And then our team really just expanded in that sense. And I think transparency is arguably the most important quality to have, and just sharing your vision and learning about theirs and just making sure that they're aligned into the future. And I really haven't had setbacks, I wouldn't say, in regards to community collaboration. I've certainly had a lot of setbacks in other areas of my career, but I would say with communities, I often click, I think, because I'm always desiring to offer something that I know the community needs in return for any support. And I think in this particular project, for example, in Iluminar el Mar, we were able to offer the fishermen a job to collect the information that they collected for us on the vessels. So for them, I think they were seen and empowered as part of the team, which created buy-in and interest in collaborating into the future. I could go on for a while about this, but
Thank you, Callie. We also have another question. A lot of these communities are in more remote areas or see a lot of varying degrees of security concerns. So how do you manage your own personal safety throughout these projects?
That's a great question. On my first expedition to the Pearl Islands archipelago, which again is a red zone for drug trafficking, I actually had a run-in with narcos on a beach, on a sea turtle nesting beach, and I had one of those spot texting devices. So I was actually texting the Navy and just letting them know, like, hey, this happened. I'm hiding in the woods. If you don't hear from me, this is why. And then after that, they actually haven't allowed our team to go into the field without an escort in the Pearl Islands. So we typically, at least 1 month before an expedition to the Pearl Islands, I'll write a letter to the Army Navy and I'll let them know our itinerary throughout the islands. And based on our specific itinerary and goals and the specific, hottest areas for drug activity, they'll decide what level of protection and escort that we need. And then they'll often arrange things like armed escorts or even transport. So they'll bring us in Army boats or Navy boats to the particular area where we'll be working. And then oftentimes I feel like we always have local community members working on the projects and as our team members. So the local community knows more than anyone else, more than the Navy, what is safe for that area. So if you have that local team member that can advise about the specific security risks and concerns where you're working, I would say that's always the best course of action. And because our team is mostly local people, we've always had that support of that guide of knowing, what time of day to go to certain places or what beaches are off limits and things like that. I would say that also in Ecuador, we actually lost 3 members of our fishing team due to pirates. They attacked them and murdered them out at sea. And so we had to move the location of our project from a southern port to a more northern port. And we have gotten the different embassies and ministries involved in our work. So just making sure that the government agencies know where the fishermen are fishing and the different threats that they might encounter. But it's always important just to connect with local communities and government agencies and receive that advice and make sure you incorporate it into your expedition planning.
Wow. Thank you, Callie. And thank you for all of your work with the communities, working with fishermen to reduce bycatch, establishing rights of nature and rights of sea turtle, on all of this research for your PhD work and mentorship of others. I want to be aware of people's time, so I'm going to hopefully help you answer one of these questions, and that is, how do we follow your ongoing research and projects? So if you don't mind pulling back up your slide, if you can, with your contact information, so that people can follow you. And then I'd like to turn this back to Kelly for a thank you. And Callie, if you are able to stay on after Kelly gives a bit of a thank you, I know there's a couple more questions people would love to have answered, but I want to be respectful of people's time as well. So here's your contact information. Lots to follow for Callie and get updates on her ongoing work, which is absolutely incredible. And Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Cassandra. And wow, Callie, thank you. I'm as inspired today as I was when I saw you in person last year. It's truly remarkable, the work that you're doing, the authentic, incredible work that you're doing for not just sea turtle conservation, but for rights of nature. Like our 5 other expert webinars, this webinar will live in perpetuity on the Sea Turtle Safe Program's YouTube channel. So we encourage all of the attendees to visit that page, watch the other webinars. We truly, the global sea turtle community, they're some pretty inspiring folks. And so we really encourage you to do that. I want to thank Shannon from AZA for all of her support today, as well as Cassandra and Katie and all of the members of the Sea Turtle Safe Program's communications team that helps make these live expert webinars possible. They are not an easy feat to pull off, so we're really excited to have that remarkable team. And I just want to share my screen to give a shout out to all of our program partners. Hopefully you can see that. We have 20 program partners Their logos are here. These are all AZA accredited zoos and aquariums, and without their support, we could not help projects like the Leatherback Project and all of the other projects that we're supporting both nationally and internationally. And I just want to thank you all for being here today. Wish you a happy World Sea Turtle Day. However you're supporting sea turtles, whether it's working with sea turtles, volunteering on nesting beaches or in sea turtle rescue facilities or for strandings, right? If it's visiting zoos and aquariums that have sea turtle conservation as a priority or donating to sea turtle conservation programs, we are grateful for you. Please reach out to safeseaturtle@gmail.com if you have any questions. And please go to our new website, turtlesafe.org. And you'll find there a lot of different things, our program plan, our annual reports, a link to the YouTube channel where all of these live expert webinars live, some information about our international work, more about our program partners, and I can't leave today without thanking our program advisors too. We have some truly incredible program scientific advisors that really help guide our work, and so I don't want to leave those folks out. And with that, I think I'm finished. And thank you for being here. And we'll stay on for some more questions for those of you who want to stick around.
Thank you, Kelly. And let's see, we do have a couple more questions and more keep popping in. So we're going to do our best to answer a couple of these with you, Callie, and kind of go from there. And so one great question that I saw typed in from Stacy asking, first and foremost, thank you for the work that you are doing. And how do you balance working remote, doing these studies, continuing to monitor past projects, and continuing to pursue new projects?
That's a great question. I definitely can't say I'm an expert in that. I'm still learning too. So if Stacy has any tips, I would love to hear. But I would say I couldn't do what I do without our team. I think that that's really the most important answer here is that we have a team in Panama and a team in Ecuador that I collaborate with and oversee and support. And I think our goal is also really to create local capacity. So new young marine biologists coming up in this space, I want to help support their dreams in coming true. And I think that that's really how I'm able to stay on top of past projects and dream about future ones is through growing our team and our capacity to do all of those things that we can come up with as being the most impactful uses of our time. And I love mentoring young people, and I love creating a safe space, particularly for young women, knowing that I didn't have that when I was growing up in every environment. So I think that's really, really important to me. And most of the people I've mentored end up wanting to be part of the team. And so that helps a lot.
Okay, I think earlier in one of your slides, you had a photo of you and you were taking notes on a human consumption event.
Mm-hmm.
This person would like to know, how do you determine, what signs do you look for to determine that it is a human consumption event?
Yeah, that's a great question. Oftentimes it can be really clear in the sense that in this particular case, you could actually see the machete cut points around the whole carapace of the turtle. So the only part of the turtle that was left was the shell and the head. But the flippers and the eggs and the rest of the body of the turtle was taken, which is not something that you would find in a natural predation event. Typically in a natural predation event, you might see like a head missing or a flipper missing or a bite mark or something like that, but you wouldn't see these clean cut points. And also, sometimes you won't find the turtle during like a human consumption event, but you'll see the uptrack of the turtle and you'll see human footprints. and then the turtle will be gone. And so in those situations, you know that the entire turtle was harvested, and maybe the shell is somewhere where you can't see.
And following along these lines of human impact, you spoke about the port developments in the Darien Gap. How far along are these developments for the project in the Darien Gap?
Unfortunately, there's one project that is under construction already. And then my understanding, and a lot of the development of these projects has not been public knowledge. It's not a very transparent process. But my understanding is that the remaining 2 to 3 ports that are on the table have not yet been approved by the government of Colombia. So they've been proposed, but they haven't been approved. And so there is still time to object to their creation. And the government of Colombia approved the environmental impact assessment that was put forth by the different groups looking to construct these ports, but the environmental impact assessment did not include the marine environment. So it did not include sea turtles, cetaceans, elasmobranchs. It just included the coastal, like mangrove habitat and forested area that would need to be destroyed. So that's a major issue. And the government has actually told me that the next step is for us to publish our data set and then kind of make a storm about it. And that's how the government will actually have the legs to stand on to potentially oppose one of the projects. So yeah, it's definitely an intense process to be collecting this information that, you know, the government didn't have access to at the time, and know that it could have implications for these large companies. And so our next steps need to be very careful, very cautious, and protecting the local communities that supported us in the collecting of this information at all costs. So the local communities will really be informing our next steps to make sure that they're protected.
We have another question here regarding pirates. You mentioned pirates a couple of times, but they would like to know, what do you mean by pirates? What do they do? Do they steal? What do pirates look like in the modern world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the pirates that we're encountering are off the coast of Ecuador, and they are typically foreign, like not from Ecuador. And the Ecuadorian fishermen can just tell based on the accents. They know they're not from Ecuador. But they're always masked. So they'll come up in either 1 to 10 vessels at once, and they'll surround the fishermen. They're always masked, and they'll take the motor, they'll take the net, they'll take the actual fish catch, they'll take GPSs and phones, and they'll literally leave the fishermen on the open ocean with nothing. So no way to call home, no motor to navigate anywhere, just stranded in a boat. And we met a fisherman that was attacked by pirates during the fishing season in October, and he was found like 50 days later off the coast of Costa Rica by the U.S. Coast Guard. And the 2 people that he was with died, and he only survived by actually eating sea turtles. And so he has a very strong connection to sea turtles because he feels, he's like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for sea turtles. So he actually has maybe one of the strongest desires to protect them out of any of the fishermen we interact with, because he just feels like he owes his life to them, which he does. So, but yeah, they basically steal everything and leave the fishermen stranded. And we actually had that happen to our team just this last October. So we had 4 vessels that were lost on the high seas for 4 days. And we got the U.S. State Department involved. We called all the ministries in the U.S. Embassy, and they assigned a search and rescue mission to all of the nearby fishing vessels. And it was actually a tuna vessel that had been assigned a search and rescue mission that found them. So we're really grateful to everybody who was part of that. And yeah, we're hoping that in the future, like Ecuador's security situation will, be bettered for everyone in the country.
And it sounds like you are inspiring many people. And I wanted to combine 2 of these questions for you. But thank you for sharing your passion for a recent graduate from undergrad, trying to find out where to go next. For marine biologists on this call who are from other areas, are there any opportunities to volunteer or intern with the Leatherback Project, or opportunities for marine biologists to learn, contribute, or help you in any way?
Oh, so exciting. I would love to collaborate with other young marine biologists. I think the best way to start that conversation would be to email me at Callie@leatherbackproject.org. And I think what I would want to do, so this will be kind of a general answer, is learn more about the particular student's interest and see how a potential need that we might have at the organization overlaps with a particular interest of that person, and see if we can come up with something that would be mutually beneficial. I really like working with students as well that say, hey, I'm really passionate about this. I know it's not something that you're doing yet, but if I could lead it, would you be open to it? That's always really exciting for me as well, because it means we're able to expand our work, but through expanding the help as well. And I really love just helping people feel like they're pursuing their passions and fulfilled in their desire to make an impact and make a difference. So yes, there's definitely room for support. Our team is always growing, and I would love to chat more.
All right, our final question. So as a Colombian, it inspires me to see the time and effort you're spending with community members in order to make your work possible. Can you share how you're able to manage the pushback from fishermen, politicians, community members who may not agree with the work that you're doing?
That's a good question. I really haven't encountered this so much, I have to say, because I often try and find a pathway to yes. You'll hear lawyers speak a lot using this type of terminology, but sometimes they'll say there's always a pathway to yes. And so I feel like I always try and find that pathway. For example, with the government of Ecuador, I remember when I first met with them to talk about bycatch reduction technology. The first obstacle was that they didn't feel like it was a real problem. They didn't feel like fisheries bycatch was a real issue, and they didn't want to invest money in it. So for the next couple of years, I took the time to collect the data to show them it was a problem, and I found the money, so they didn't have to invest their own money. And then I invited them to be part of the team so that like they would benefit from a project that I'm already doing that's already going to be paid for. So there's no loss to them, except we just need their approval. And I feel like that's kind of a strategy that I've utilized, is finding out what the government might need, for example, or what the community might need, and find a pathway to make what you're trying to do be mutually beneficial and serve everyone. And there's always a pathway to yes, there really is. And I think with the local communities in Colombia, there is resistance for the port, but the community members don't feel like they can speak out because of the paramilitary groups that are involved. And so having outside support and having non-Colombian voices that are willing to kind of raise attention and raise awareness about what's happening is actually the only way that it might be able to happen. And so I've kind of found those areas of common ground, I would say, with the communities and with the governments. But it's hard to understand what it can look like from the outside. It's hard to understand what that might look like in a new country or a new community until you go and you really sit down and you have those honest conversations. And that's why I would say transparency is so key. Because if you are just entirely transparent about, the goals that you have and the pathways that you're envisioning to get there, that's what allows that like open dialogue to try and find common ground. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
I love that, Callie. And thank you again. I'm going to turn this back over to Kelly for our final thanks.
I think any of us can wrap it up, but we probably do need to wrap it up. We've gone a bit over, and thanks to everyone who is able to stay on to hear, all of the questions answered by Callie. Callie, thank you to you and your team, the team that's really helping move this work forward. All the community members, it's really incredible. Hopefully everyone will stay in touch, and hope you have a great rest of your World Sea Turtle Day. Thanks, everybody.
Happy World Sea Turtle Day.